I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. I mean, who really expects to have their heart shattered by the person they've spent years building their life with? Let me set the stage for you. My name is Jake, I'm in my late 30s, and my wife, Sarah, and I have been together for over a decade. We had what I thought was a solid relationship, good communication, shared interests, and a lot of love. At least, that's what I believed until everything came crashing down. We met during college in a pretty typical love story way. I was drawn to her vivacious personality and her sharp wit. Sarah had this infectious laugh that could light up any room. We were the couple that friends envied, and I often bragged about how lucky I was. I mean, I even got her backstage passes to see her favorite podcast live, hosted by a charismatic guy named Luke. Sarah idolized him, to the point where I sometimes joked that if she ever met him, I'd have to fight for her attention. Little did I know that my joke would become a cruel reality. Things started to shift a few months ago. It was subtle at first. Sarah became more guarded with her phone, frequently texting but never letting me see who she was communicating with. It was odd, she was always an open book with me. I shrugged it off as her simply becoming more private, or maybe she was just busy with work or her friends. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt this nagging sensation deep down. There were little things, her late-night phone calls, her sudden need for me time, and a slight change in her demeanor. She seemed distant, almost disinterested, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. The real turning point came a couple of weeks ago when I borrowed her laptop to catch up on some work. I needed to finish a project, and mine was acting up. While I was logged in, I noticed a notification pop up, a message from a contact simply named Luke. My heart sank. The name rang a bell immediately, and I remembered the podcast host I had gotten those backstage passes for. I felt a mixture of curiosity and dread. What could she possibly be saying to him? So, against my better judgment, I clicked on it, thinking I'd find something innocent. What I found made my blood run cold. There they were, exchanging messages that were far from innocent. Flirtation dripped from every word. She called him handsome and amazing, and the way she talked about their connection made me want to vomit. It was like a punch to the gut. My mind raced as I read through their conversations, dates discussed, inside jokes exchanged, and even veiled references to their secret meetings. I felt sick. It was not just a simple crush, it was an affair. I closed the laptop and sat there in disbelief, trying to process the betrayal. I felt anger boiling inside me, mixed with heartbreak. All those years together, all the love and trust I thought we shared, it all felt like a lie. I felt like a fool for not catching on sooner. How could she do this to me? I confronted her that night. My heart pounded in my chest as she walked in, blissfully unaware of what I knew. I could have approached it calmly, but the rage bubbled over and I exploded. "What's going on with you and Luke?" I shouted. Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought I saw genuine fear in her eyes. She stammered, trying to deflect, claiming they were just friends and that I was overreacting. But I didn't buy it. I laid out the evidence, the messages, the details, everything. Her excuses fell flat. As the confrontation escalated, she switched from defensive to angry. "You're being ridiculous, Jake. You're just jealous," she shouted back, completely avoiding accountability. I was taken aback by her attitude. Instead of remorse, there was this ugly self-righteousness that I had never seen before. It was infuriating. She tried to downplay it, claiming I was being paranoid and that I should trust her. Trust? How could I trust someone who was so willing to throw our marriage away for a guy she barely knew? The emotional upheaval was intense. I felt like I was on a roller coaster of disbelief, betrayal, and anger. My mind raced, replaying every moment, every memory with her through the lens of this newfound truth. I couldn't think straight, and I knew I had to make a decision about our future. Did I still want to fight for this marriage, or was it time to walk away from the person who had broken my heart? As I stared into her eyes during our confrontation, I realized I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. The woman I married would have never treated me like this. With each passing moment, I was grappling with the choice I now had to make, between holding on to the love I thought we had or letting go of someone who had disrespected me in the worst way possible. The confrontation left me feeling raw and exposed. As Sarah stormed out of the living room, shouting about how I had no right to invade her privacy, my heart raced with a mixture of anger and despair. I paced the room, trying to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions swirling in my chest. It's funny how you think you know someone, only to realize that the person you've built a life with has a completely different side that you never saw coming. That night was a sleepless one. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on our relationship. I thought about our wedding vows, the dreams we had shared, and the plans we had for the future. Everything felt tainted now. I couldn't shake the image of her cozying up to Luke, laughing at his jokes and sharing secrets that were meant only for us. I had spent years being her confidant, and now I felt like a stranger in my own home. The next day, I decided to dig deeper. I needed to know the extent of her betrayal. I didn't want to confront her again until I had all the facts. With a heavy heart, I logged into her laptop again, this time with a sense of determination. I searched for any more evidence of their correspondence, my hands shaking as I typed. I rifled through her emails and text messages, trying to piece together a timeline of their relationship. What I found was worse than I could have ever imagined. They had been meeting up for weeks. Messages about hotels, missed calls, and plans to see each other during my work hours made my stomach churn. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal. The woman I thought I knew was living a double life, and I was left in the dark, oblivious to the reality of our marriage. I found myself crying like a child, anger giving way to sadness. How could she do this to me? All the love I had poured into our relationship seemed to mean nothing to her. After gathering my evidence, something shifted in me. I felt a steely resolve take hold. I knew I couldn't just let this go without a fight. I needed to confront her again, not just to yell or cry, but to give her a chance to come clean. So I waited for her to come home, my heart racing in anticipation of what was about to unfold. When she walked in, I could see the anxiety on her face. The moment I locked eyes with her, I could tell she knew. I gestured for her to sit down, and I laid out everything I'd found, the emails, the messages, and the timeline. "You think this is just a misunderstanding?" I asked, my voice steady despite the chaos inside me. "You've been lying to me this whole time, Sarah." Her expression shifted from shock to defiance, and she opened her mouth to protest, but I didn't let her. "Don't even try to deny it. I know everything." I watched as her bravado crumbled, her eyes darted around the room as if searching for an escape. "Jake, please, it's not what you think," she pleaded, her voice wavering. "Luke is just a friend. We were bonding over the podcast, that's all." I couldn't believe the audacity. "Bonding? Is that what you call sneaking around behind my back?" I fired back, feeling that familiar anger rise again. "You've been lying to me, and now you're trying to downplay it. You think I'm stupid." My voice cracked, but I pressed on. "You have to own this. You've been cheating on me." Sarah burst into tears at that point, and I could see she was finally starting to understand the weight of what she'd done. "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just happened," she sobbed. "I thought it was harmless at first, but then things got out of hand." Her excuses only fueled my rage. "How can you justify this?" I shouted, feeling the tears welling up in my own eyes. "You've betrayed our marriage, our life together." Every word felt like a dagger, piercing through the carefully constructed facade of our relationship. I wanted her to feel the gravity of her actions, to understand the betrayal that had shattered my trust. The conversation spiraled into chaos, with Sarah shouting about how I had pushed her away and how I never paid enough attention to her needs. "You're always working, Jake." I felt lonely. She screamed, as if that somehow justified her actions. I was left dumbfounded. I had sacrificed so much for our relationship, and now she was using my dedication against me. "Loneliness doesn't give you an excuse to cheat." I shot back, the hurt resurfacing in waves. After what felt like an eternity of arguing, Sarah finally fell silent, and the tension in the room was palpable. The anger I had felt was now tinged with sadness. I watched her, this woman I had loved so deeply, break down in front of me. "What do you want me to say?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of my decision pressing on my chest. "I don't know what I want anymore," I admitted. "I don't even know if I can forgive you." In that moment, I felt lost. My heart was broken, and I had no idea how to pick up the pieces. It was a turning point. I had to decide what I was willing to accept moving forward. Would I fight for our marriage, or was it time to let go of someone who had chosen betrayal over love? The silence that followed our explosive confrontation hung heavily in the air. Sarah's tears had dried, leaving behind only the remnants of her emotional outburst. I could see the realization begin to settle in her eyes. The weight of what she'd done was sinking in, and for the first time she looked truly vulnerable. But vulnerability often breeds a desperate kind of self-preservation, and I could sense she was desperately searching for a way out of the mess she'd created. "Please, Jake," she said, her voice trembling as she reached out for my hand. "I know I messed up. I was just confused. You've been working so much, and I felt like I didn't matter to you anymore." I pulled my hand away, unable to bear her touch. "Don't try to make this about me. You chose to betray my trust. You chose to cheat." My voice was steady, but inside I was a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. I wanted to believe that there was still something worth saving, that we could work through this, but the pain of her infidelity felt insurmountable. "I'll do anything to fix this," she pleaded, desperation creeping into her tone. "I'll quit my job, I'll stop talking to Luke. Just give me another chance." Her words felt like empty promises, a last-ditch effort to hold onto the life we had built. But could I really believe her? The emotional roller coaster I found myself on was dizzying. I wanted to scream, to hurl every painful thing I felt at her, but there was also a small part of me that wanted to forgive her. I wanted to believe that love could conquer all, even this betrayal. But as I looked at her, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was staring at a stranger, a woman who had shattered my trust in the most profound way. "I need time," I said finally, my voice low but firm. "I need to think about all of this." I watched her face fall, the hope fading as she realized that I might not be able to offer her the forgiveness she was begging for. She nodded slowly, that defeated look in her eyes breaking my heart all over again. "Okay, if that's what you need." And with that, she turned and walked away, leaving me standing there, grappling with the chaos of my thoughts. The following days were a blur. I went through the motions of life, but my mind was consumed with the fallout from our confrontation. I found myself packing around the house, feeling more like a ghost haunting the memories of our once happy life. I was angry with Sarah, but I was equally angry at myself for not noticing the signs sooner. How had I let this happen? I spent nights tossing and turning, replaying every moment I could remember, the laughter, the shared dreams, the physical intimacy that once felt so sacred. Now it felt tainted, as if every cherished memory had been smeared with betrayal. I even found myself scrolling through social media, looking for any mention of Luke, desperate to gauge the nature of their relationship. It was a toxic cycle, one that made me feel even worse. After a week of endless contemplation, I made a decision. I needed to confront Luke. I wasn't sure what I was hoping to achieve, closure, revenge, or perhaps just the catharsis of expressing my anger. But I knew I wouldn't be able to move forward until I faced the person who had played a significant role in tearing my marriage apart. I dug through my contacts and found a way to reach out to him. I sent a message that would leave no room for misunderstanding. "We need to talk." To my surprise, he responded almost immediately, agreeing to meet. I didn't know what I would say to him, but I was determined to confront this man who had violated the sanctity of my marriage. We agreed to meet at a local cafe, a neutral ground where I wouldn't be tempted to lose my temper. As I drove there, my heart raced with a mix of anxiety and adrenaline. What would he say? Would he apologize? Would he deny everything? I tried to prepare myself for every possible scenario, but deep down, I knew I was seeking answers. When I arrived, I spotted him sitting at a table in the corner. He looked relaxed, a stark contrast to what I was feeling. I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. As I approached, he looked up and flashed a smile that made my skin crawl. "Hey man, nice to finally meet you in person," he said, completely unaware of the storm brewing inside me. "Cut the pleasantries," I said sharply, taking a seat across from him. "We need to talk about Sarah." The smile faded from his face as the tension thickened in the air between us. "Sarah, what about her?" asked, feigning ignorance, but I could see the flicker of recognition in his eyes. "I know about the affair." The words came out more forcefully than I'd intended, but I didn't care. I needed him to know that I was aware of what he had done, that I wouldn't let him treat me like a fool. He leaned back in his chair, a smirk creeping onto his face. Look, man, I didn't mean for things to happen the way they did. Sarah and I have a connection. His arrogance infuriated me. A connection? I spat. You're a homewrecker. You knew she was married. Yet you went ahead with it anyway. How can you live with yourself? His expression shifted and he attempted to justify his actions. I thought they were having problems. She told me you weren't treating her well, that you were too busy with work to pay attention to her. The words hit me like a slap. So you believed her. You didn't think to ask me. You didn't think to respect our marriage. My voice trembled with a mix of anger and disbelief. He shrugged, a casual demeanor that made my blood boil. I didn't think it was my place to get involved. She's an adult, Jake. You can't blame me for wanting to be with someone who was interested in me. I felt rage bubble over, but I forced myself to take a deep breath. This isn't just about you, Luke. You've hurt someone I love. You've betrayed my trust. You owe me an apology. He rolled his eyes, seemingly unconcerned. Look, man, if you think Sarah is worth fighting for, go for it. But I'm not going to apologize for something that was mutual. I stood up, my chair scraping against the floor, my heart racing with fury. I couldn't reason with someone who was so steeped in his own self-importance. I hope you enjoy your little fling, because it's not going to last. I'm going to fight for my marriage, and I'll make sure you regret coming into our lives. As I turned to leave, I could feel the weight of the world on my shoulders. The confrontation with Luke had given me clarity, but had also added to the emotional turmoil I was already facing. I returned home determined to confront Sarah again, this time with a newfound sense of conviction. I had to decide what that fight would look like and how I wanted to navigate this painful chapter of my life. As I walked through the front door, I felt a spark of hope flicker within me. Maybe I could save my marriage, but it would take work, honesty, and a willingness to confront the truth. The journey ahead was going to be difficult, but I was prepared to face whatever came next. I just needed to figure out how to make Sarah see the gravity of her choices and whether we could rebuild from the ashes of betrayal. The confrontation with Luke lingered in my mind, and as I stepped through the front door, I felt a mix of dread and determination. I knew I couldn't put this off any longer. Sarah and I needed to have a serious conversation about what had happened and where we both stood. My heart raced as I walked down the hallway toward the living room, where I found her sitting on the couch, lost in thought. She looked up when I entered, her eyes widening as if she sensed the seriousness of the moment. Jake started, but I held up my hand to silence her. I was tired of her excuses, tired of her attempts to downplay what had happened. I needed to lay everything on the table. Sarah, we need to talk about this affair, I said, my voice steady but firm. I spoke to Luke. Her expression shifted from surprise to apprehension. You what? Why would you do that? There was a hint of panic in her eyes, and I could tell she was starting to realize the weight of the situation was shifting against her. I needed to hear it from him. I replied, crossing my arms. I wanted to know how deep this went. You've lied to me for weeks, and I deserve to hear the truth. I'm not a bad person, Jake, she insisted, her voice rising defensively. It was a mistake. You have to believe me. I didn't mean to hurt you. A mistake? Is that all it was to you? I shot back, my anger resurfacing. You didn't just trip and fall into bed with him. You made a conscious decision to betray me. You chose to lie, to sneak around, and to pursue something with him while you were still married to me. Her lips trembled as she attempted to defend herself. I was lonely. I needed someone to talk to. You were never around. Loneliness doesn't justify infidelity, I argued. You could have talked to me. You could have told me how you felt instead of running to another man. I would have listened. The silence hung thick in the air as we faced each other, both of us grappling with the enormity of what had happened. I could see the conflict in her eyes, the guilt, the anger, the confusion. She was a storm of emotions, much like I was at that moment. I'm sorry, she finally said, her voice softer. I never wanted to hurt you. I was just trying to find a way to feel better about myself. It was hard for me to hear those words. I wanted to feel sympathy, but the pain of betrayal clouded my judgment. I can't just accept your apology, Sarah. Trust doesn't come back overnight after something like this. I'll do whatever it takes, she pleaded, her voice breaking. I can prove to you that I'm committed to fixing this. I love you, Jake. I don't want to lose you." Despite her words, the doubt still nagged at me. How could I possibly trust her again? How could I believe that this wasn't just another empty promise? I had given so much of myself to our relationship, and now I felt like I was standing on shaky ground with a crumbling foundation. "If you're serious about that, then we need to talk about boundaries," I said, trying to regain control over the conversation. "You have to cut ties with Luke completely. No more texting, no more social media. You need to show me that you're committed to making this work." "Of course I'll do that," she said, wiping away tears. "I'll block him on everything, I promise. And you need to be honest with me moving forward. No more lies. I need to know everything, even the uncomfortable parts. If we're going to rebuild, it has to be done on a foundation of honesty." "I understand," she replied, her voice steadying slightly. "I'll be transparent. I want to make this work, Jake. I'll prove it to you." As we continued to talk, I could see the sincerity in her eyes. I wanted to believe her, but the scars of betrayal ran deep. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap but terrified of what lay below. As the conversation progressed, I found myself torn between anger and a flicker of hope. I wanted to fight for our marriage, but I knew it would take time and effort from both of us. I needed to see genuine changes, not just empty promises. "Jake, I know I've hurt you," she said, her voice trembling, "but I want to do everything I can to make it right. I'm willing to go to therapy if that's what it takes. I want us to be stronger than before." The idea of therapy had merit. I had always believed in the value of professional help, especially when it came to navigating the complexities of relationships. "Okay," I said slowly. "If you're willing to put in the work, then I'll consider it, but this has to be a mutual effort. You can't just expect me to forgive you overnight." "I understand," she replied, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back." As we continued to talk, I felt the tension slowly begin to dissipate. There was still a long road ahead, but at least we were beginning to communicate. It felt like a fragile truce, one that could easily shatter with one misstep. I suggested we start attending couples therapy together, to give us both a safe space to express our feelings and work through the issues in our marriage. Sarah agreed, and we began to outline what that would look like. I could see her desire to make things work, but I was still haunted by the knowledge of her betrayal. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself grappling with a mix of hope and skepticism. The journey ahead would be difficult, but I was willing to take the first steps. I knew it wouldn't be easy, and there would be moments of doubt, anger, and sadness, but I also felt a glimmer of possibility, a chance for healing, growth, and perhaps even a renewed sense of love. But as I lay in bed at night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the wounds were still fresh. Trust was a fragile thing, and it would take time to rebuild what had been lost. The road to recovery wouldn't be straight, but I was willing to try. I just hoped that Sarah was as committed to this journey as she claimed to be. With that hope, I drifted off to sleep, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. I knew I had to guard my heart, but I also recognized that love sometimes requires vulnerability. I was prepared to fight for us, but I needed to ensure that the fight would be worth it. Little did I know, the journey was about to take unexpected turns, testing our resolve in ways we had never anticipated. The weeks that followed our confrontation felt like a whirlwind. We started attending couples therapy, and although I was apprehensive, it quickly became a vital outlet for both of us. Our therapist, Dr. Martinez, was skilled at navigating the murky waters of betrayal, and she provided an environment where we could express our feelings without fear of judgment. The first few sessions were intense. There were moments of raw honesty as Sarah and I both opened up about our emotions, the pain, anger, and betrayal. Sarah spoke about her loneliness and her reasons for seeking comfort in Luke. I shared my feelings of betrayal, confusion, and heartbreak. Dr. Martinez helped us articulate our emotions, and while it was painful, it felt like we were finally addressing the elephant in the room. But even in therapy, I struggled to grasp the extent of Sarah's betrayal. Every time she mentioned Luke, a pit formed in my stomach. I tried to focus on our healing, but I couldn't shake the picture of her with him. sharing intimate moments that should have been hours. I felt like I was battling not just for our marriage but also against the memories of their time together. One session, Sarah broke down in tears as she described how lonely she felt during my long hours at work. "I thought I was invisible to you," she said, her voice trembling. "I didn't think you cared anymore." I felt a mix of anger and sympathy. "I did care, Sarah, but you never communicated that to me. I was always there for you, but you decided to seek validation elsewhere." Dr. Martinez intervened, guiding us through our emotional turmoil. "It's important to recognize that both of you have a role in this. Jake, perhaps you were too focused on work, and Sarah, you didn't communicate your needs. This is about rebuilding trust and understanding how to meet each other's needs moving forward." The sessions forced us to confront our vulnerabilities. I started to understand the importance of communication in our relationship, how I needed to be more present and attentive to Sarah's emotional needs. In turn, she began to realize the weight of her actions and how they impacted not just me, but our relationship as a whole. As the weeks passed, I noticed subtle changes in Sarah. She was more proactive about spending time together, suggesting date nights and activities that reminded us of the early days of our relationship. It was nice, but a part of me remained guarded. I didn't want to get my hopes up too high, terrified of being hurt again. One evening, after we returned from therapy, Sarah surprised me by cooking dinner, something we hadn't done together in ages. The atmosphere felt lighter, and for a moment, it was as though we were just two people in love again. We laughed over dinner, reminiscing about old memories, and I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. Maybe, just maybe, we could get through this. But as the night wore on, that flicker began to dim. I found myself unable to shake the feeling of unease that had settled in my gut. "Sarah," I said hesitantly, "how are things going with Luke? Have you completely cut ties?" Her smile faltered, and I could see the tension in her shoulders. "I blocked him on everything, Jake. I swear, I have no intention of speaking to him again." But the truth hung between us like an unsaid confession. I couldn't shake the feeling that she hadn't fully severed ties, and a part of me wanted proof. The fear of being blindsided again loomed large in my mind. "I just want to make sure you're being honest with me," I pressed. "I need to know I can trust you." The words felt heavy, and I could see her struggling to find the right response. "You have to believe me, Jake. I'm committed to fixing this," she said, desperation creeping into her voice. That evening, I went to bed with a heavy heart. I wanted to believe her, but the nagging doubts persisted. The therapy sessions had brought some progress, but trust was a delicate thing, and I felt like we were still walking on eggshells. I wished for a clear sign that we could move forward, but every time I thought we were making progress, I found myself questioning everything. As the days turned into weeks, I started to feel overwhelmed by the emotional weight of our situation. I knew I needed to confront my feelings and express them to Sarah, but I also found myself wrestling with the fear of pushing her away again if I brought up concerns about her commitment. That's when I made a decision. I would confront her again, but this time I would be vulnerable. I needed to let her know how deeply the betrayal had affected me, how I needed her to help me heal, and how important it was for me to feel secure in our relationship. The next evening, after therapy and dinner, I sat down with her in the living room. "Sarah, can we talk?" I asked, my heart racing. "Of course," she replied, her expression softening. "I've been thinking a lot about everything," I began, searching for the right words. "I want to believe that we can move forward, but I still feel this heavy weight on my chest. I'm still scared that you might not be fully committed to us." Her expression turned serious as she listened intently. "I understand, Jake. I can't even imagine how difficult this is for you," she said. "But I want you to know that I'm here for you. I'm committed to being honest and rebuilding that trust." Taking a deep breath, I continued, "I need to know that you're really done with Luke. I can't move forward until I believe that. I don't want to be in a relationship where there are still ties to someone who hurt us." "I promise you, Jake, I'm done with him," she insisted, her voice steady. "I've blocked him on everything, and I don't plan to contact him again. I want to focus on us. I love you, and I need you to believe that." In that moment, I saw the sincerity in her eyes, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a flicker of hope. "I want to believe you," I said quietly, "but I need time to process this. I need to see that you're committed to making things work." "I understand," she replied, reaching for my hand. "I'll do whatever it takes to earn back your trust. Just don't give up on me, Jake." As I stared into her eyes, I felt a mixture of fear and hope. The road ahead would be rocky, but perhaps we could navigate it together. It wouldn't be easy, and the scars of betrayal would take time to heal. But in that moment, I realized that I was willing to fight for our love, because beneath the pain, there was still a glimmer of what we once had, a chance to rebuild and redefine our relationship. With tentative optimism, we decided to take it one day at a time. I knew it would be a long journey, but we had taken the first steps toward healing. Little did I know how soon those steps would be tested again, as new challenges loomed on the horizon, threatening to shake the fragile foundation we were trying to rebuild. As we continued on our path to recovery, I felt a sense of cautious optimism. We were attending therapy regularly, communicating more openly, and both making a concerted effort to rebuild our relationship. However, I couldn't shake the feeling that while we were making progress, the specter of Sarah's infidelity still loomed large over us. I was still wary, and the pain of betrayal lingered like an unhealed wound. One evening, Sarah suggested we go out for dinner, a small step toward returning to normalcy. I appreciated her effort to create positive moments for us, so I agreed. We went to a quaint little restaurant that held memories of happier times. As we shared a meal, I could see the effort she was putting in to engage with me, to rekindle that spark we once had. We laughed, reminiscing about our early days together, and for a brief moment it felt like we were on the right track. But just when I thought we were in a good place, my doubts crept in again. I still couldn't shake off the unease I felt whenever her phone buzzed or when she received a message. I had told her about my vulnerability regarding communication, and she assured me she would be more transparent. But a part of me couldn't help but wonder if she was still hiding something. A few days later, during one of our therapy sessions, Dr. Martinez brought up the topic of trust. "Jake," she said, looking at me intently, "you've mentioned that you still feel uneasy about Sarah's communication. Have you both talked about how to build that trust back?" I nodded, feeling the weight of her gaze. "We have, but I still find myself questioning things. I want to trust her, but it's hard to let go of the past." Dr. Martinez turned to Sarah. "What do you think, Sarah? How can you reassure Jake that you are committed to rebuilding his trust?" "I've been doing everything I can to be transparent," she replied earnestly. "I know I've hurt him, and I want to show him that I'm fully committed to our marriage. I'll share my phone with him, show him my messages, whatever it takes." The idea made me uneasy, but I knew it was a step toward transparency. "I appreciate that, but it's not just about seeing your phone," I said, trying to articulate my feelings. "It's also about building an emotional connection. I need to feel valued and important again." Dr. Martinez nodded, guiding us deeper into the conversation about emotional needs. It was a breakthrough moment for us. I realized that rebuilding trust was a two-way street, and we both needed to work together to create a stronger foundation. As the days turned into weeks, we continued to communicate more openly, and slowly, I began to see glimpses of the woman I fell in love with. Sarah was genuinely trying, and she would often check in with me, asking how I was feeling about our progress. These small gestures began to chip away at the walls I had built around my heart. Yet, despite our progress, an undercurrent of anxiety gnawed at me. One evening, as I was getting ready for bed, I noticed Sarah's phone lying on the kitchen counter. My heart raced with temptation, and against my better judgment, I picked it up. I told myself I wouldn't snoop, but I couldn't help but glance at her messages. What I saw made my heart drop. There were messages from Luke, some flirty exchanges that felt like a stab to the gut. My hands shook as I read their conversation, which was filled with inside jokes and shared memories. My breath quickened, and a wave of betrayal washed over me once again. Just when I thought we were making progress, I was faced with this gut-wrenching evidence of her continued connection to him. My mind raced as I processed the information. I felt trapped in a whirlwind of emotions: fear, anger, and heartbreak. How could she do this to me again? I decided to confront her right then and there. "Sarah," I called out, my voice trembling with emotion. She rushed into the kitchen, her face filled with confusion. What's wrong? I held up her phone, feeling the heat rising in my cheeks. Why are you still texting Luke? I demanded, my voice shaking. Her eyes widened and I watched as her face drained of color. Jake, I can explain. Explain what? That you're still in contact with him, after everything we've been through. I shouted, feeling the pain from her betrayal resurface like a tidal wave. I thought we were working towards something real, but you're still holding on to him. No, it's not like that, she begged, tears streaming down her cheeks. I swear I was trying to end things. I thought we could still be friends, but I didn't mean to hurt you. I felt like I was losing my mind. The emotions swirled within me like a storm. Friends, after what he did to our marriage. My voice cracked with hurt. This isn't just about you anymore. You need to understand how much pain this causes me. I thought we were committed to making this work together. She reached for my arm, but I pulled away, feeling the chasm between us grow wider. Jake, I know I messed up. I'm so sorry. I thought I could handle it, but I see now that it was a mistake. I turned away, my heart racing with anger and despair. I don't know if I can do this anymore, Sarah. You've broken my trust again, and I don't know if I can forgive you this time. The words hung in the air, heavy with finality. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, staring into an abyss of uncertainty. This was the moment where I had to decide whether to fight for our marriage or walk away for good. With tears in her eyes, Sarah pleaded, "Please don't give up on us, Jake. I love you and I want to make this right. I can end things with Luke for good. I'll do whatever it takes to prove to you that you're the only one for me." The sincerity in her voice tugged at my heart. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe that love could triumph over betrayal. But the pain of betrayal was still fresh, and it felt like we were back at square one. "You have to prove it to me, Sarah," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "You have to show me that you're willing to put in the work. No more secrets, no more contact with Luke. If we're going to rebuild, it has to be done with complete honesty." She nodded, frantically wiping away her tears. "I promise. I'll block him right now. I can show you my phone, my messages, whatever you need." I could see the desperation in her eyes, and for the first time it felt like she understood the gravity of her actions. But even in that moment of vulnerability, the doubt still lingered in the back of my mind. Could we truly rebuild from this? Ultimately, I knew that the decision lay with me. I could either choose to walk away or take a leap of faith and fight for the love we had once shared. I needed time to think, to process everything that had happened. As I stood there, watching Sarah crumble under the weight of her choices, I realized that love is not just about the good times. It's about overcoming the darkest moments together. It's about fighting for each other even when it feels impossible. In that moment, I made my choice. I would fight for us, but I would also protect myself. We would begin again with honesty and transparency as the foundation. It wouldn't be easy, but I was willing to take that risk because in my heart, I still believed in the love we had shared. As we embraced, the weight of uncertainty hung in the air, but I felt a glimmer of hope. We had a long road ahead, but perhaps we could redefine our relationship, emerging stronger for having survived the storm. In the end, it wasn't just about the mistakes we had made, but about the resilience we could build together.